So, Las Vegas Raiders' star pass rusher Maxx Crosby recently appeared on a podcast where he was asked some interesting questions, and he was brutally honest about everything. One key question was about his current stance with the Raiders, whether he's fully committed to the team or considering a move elsewhere. And he was also asked about Myles Garrett, and his response was quite interesting. Let's have a look at what he said and what it meant for the Raiders. What's up, buddies? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We cover all AFC West news here on this channel. Before moving to Maxx Crosby, let me share with you another coaching move. The Raiders just hired former Saints defensive coordinator Joe Woods as the defensive pass game coordinator. Woods, a two-time defensive coordinator, joins Pete Carroll's staff in Las Vegas. This is an interesting move because Woods has led defenses that ranked in the top 5 multiple times. While some might question his two-time label, Woods' track record speaks for itself. His defenses have ranked 13th in points allowed in multiple seasons and even 8th in one season. These are solid numbers, and while not elite, they show consistency. He's also had top 5 rankings in yards allowed. Woods isn't coming in as the defensive coordinator, but as the pass game coordinator, and he's known for his work with secondaries. This aligns well with Patrick Graham, the current defensive coordinator, who also has a background coaching defensive back. Woods' experience makes this a smart hire. Overall, this is a solid hire for the Raiders. They've done a good job bringing in a strong coaching staff. The staff you assemble is crucial, especially if the head coach is in for the long haul. With Pete Carroll likely staying for at least 3 years, possibly a fourth, having consistent quality coordinators and assistants will help develop the team. Now, back to Maxx Crosby, he mentioned 2 main issues that have come up. First, there's the contract situation that still needs to be worked out. Second, there's the question of the team's plan moving forward. Crosby shared that he's had conversations with the front office, ownership, head coach, and GM. He's been discussing what's next for the team because, as he put it, he only has one body and can only play for so long. Crosby emphasized that he plays with reckless abandon and knows he can't play forever. What matters most to him is having a chance to win. Interestingly, Crosby made it clear that he doesn't want to join a team like the Chiefs just to get a Super Bowl ring. That wouldn't mean much to him. Instead, he wants to be part of building a winning culture with the Raiders. His focus is on winning in a way that feels meaningful. At the end of the day, he wants to be in the Hall of Fame and win a Super Bowl, but he wants to do it the right way. Now let's dive into the contract side of things. Crosby's current deal runs from 2022 to 2026, but there's no guaranteed money left in 2025 and 2026. This means the Raiders could cut or trade him without financial penalties, which has fueled speculation. While it's not fully public yet, there's a real chance Crosby won't play for the Raiders this year if a new deal isn't worked out. It seems likely his agent has already approached the Raiders front office, pushing for a new contract. And this isn't just about a raise for the next season or two. Crosby likely wants a long-term commitment with more guaranteed money. As a top 5 player at his position, Crosby is underpaid compared to his peers. The average salary for top pass rushers is around $31 million, while Crosby's cap numbers sit at $24 to $27 million. Even when he signed his current contract, its annual value is below what he could have earned. He could have secured over $30 million annually back then if he wanted to. At this point, Crosby deserves both a raise and more guaranteed money. The Raiders should be locking him in as a top priority. Crosby is 27 in his prime, and securing him for another 3 or 4 years would greatly benefit the Raiders. Over the next 5 years, the team could improve significantly, and having Crosby on the roster would be a big part of that. This year, the Raiders have $108 million in cap space. If Crosby gets a raise, his salary could jump from $28 million to around $32 million. That means adding about $4 to $5 million this year and possibly $10 million more in future years. While cap hits aren't everything, they matter when considering guarantees and base salary. Crosby's base salary this year is about $22 million, so his contract will need to be reworked. There's speculation that Crosby might hold out if a deal isn't reached. He's mentioned his contract multiple times recently, and it's clear the Raiders need to take care of him. But the other key factor is the team's plan to win. Crosby has shown optimism about the Raiders' direction. He's had conversations with figures like Tom Brady, Pete Carroll, and John Spytek, and believes the team is heading the right way. This is the most optimistic Crosby has been, according to what he told Pro Football Talk's Chris Sims. The Raiders' current plan looks better than ever. Hiring Tom Telesco was a solid start, and Mark Davis seems to value input from football minds like Tom Brady. Bringing in John Spytek also shows promise. He's known as a smart football mind. Crosby acknowledges this progress and seems to see a vision for the future. The Raiders have made significant moves recently, like bringing in Spytek. While moving on from Telesco might not have been everyone's favorite move, there's potential upside with Spytek. The key now is building the right culture and environment for winning. Keeping a player like Crosby is crucial to that process. On top of that, bringing in proven winners like Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly is a smart strategy. When you pair that with last year's draft, even though it wasn't Spytek's draft, and what they could potentially do in the upcoming draft, things look promising for the Raiders. Hopefully, the Raiders will take care of Maxx Crosby and work out a deal. Some might argue that Crosby signed his contract 3 or 4 years ago and should play under it. I get that perspective, but the reality is different now. From Crosby's point of view, if other players are demanding raises and guaranteed money from their teams and getting it, there's no reason why he shouldn't expect the same. Now, shifting gears slightly, let's talk about Maxx Crosby's response to Myles Garrett's trade request. There are a couple of ways to interpret it. It could be Crosby showing support for Garrett being stuck on a team that's struggled year after year, understanding why he wants out. Or it could be Crosby subtly suggesting that Garrett should consider joining him, hinting at the potential for a dynamic duo that could really elevate a team. I don't think Maxx Crosby is signaling that he wants out too. After Antonio Pierce got fired in the rough season last year, Crosby made it clear on social media that he wasn't happy with the team's direction. He wanted to put pressure on Mark Davis, Tom Brady, and the rest of the Raiders ownership to make serious moves. Stop cutting corners with coaches and stop bringing in people who aren't helping the team. Crosby was a big supporter of Antonio Pierce, and he might have been upset about his firing. They had a close relationship, and Crosby believed in him. But even Crosby probably realized that Antonio Pierce was in over his head as a head coach. Pierce should definitely take another coaching role, maybe as a linebackers coach, work his way up to defensive coordinator, and eventually get another shot at being a head coach. No doubt Antonio Pierce got the players to play hard, but the coaching decisions, player personnel moves, and overall management were lacking. He even admitted in his last press conference that he wanted more to say in quarterback decision, hinting that he disagreed with past choices. So his comment about Myles Garrett's trade request might be his way of opening up a conversation to bring Garrett to the Raiders. Now, some folks may argue that Garrett would cost too much and that he's not worth it. But to be realistic, the guy's only 28 years old. He's going to continue being a dominant force at defensive end for another 3, 4, maybe even 5 or 6 years. So if the Raiders are giving up 2 first-round picks, one this year, one next year, and signing him to a 4-year deal while extending Maxx Crosby and getting Christian Wilkins, they're looking at the best defensive line in the entire NFL. Why wouldn't they do that? They could use that first-round pick on a player who may or may not succeed at the next level. One just doesn't know. But with Myles Garrett, it's sure. He's elite. He was the 2023 NFL Defensive Player of the Year for a reason. He's at the prime of his game, just like Maxx Crosby and Christian Wilkins. It only makes sense. It seems that Maxx Crosby's showing support for Garrett's trade request is a way to open the door for him to consider the Raiders. Some people might negate the notion of Garrett coming to the Raiders because they are in as bad a situation as the Browns. But things are different now. The Raiders now have Pete Carroll as head coach, Chip Kelly as offensive coordinator, stability on defense with Patrick Graham, and strong assistant coaches. They can build a dominant defense that'll win games. Even with Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell, they were in games. They had a chance to win, even with all the injuries on defense. Now, imagine bringing in Myles Garrett, pairing him with Maxx Crosby, and having Tyree Wilson step up as a great run stuffer inside. That's a phenomenal defensive line. Let's be honest, Maxx Crosby needs to take better care of his body. He can't keep playing 98% of the snaps. Pete Carroll needs to be the wiser coach here and cut his snap count to 75 to 80% to keep him healthy. Having Garrett and Kuntze rotate in will help with that. As the Raiders continue to build, having a stable coaching staff will be key for player development. Players drafted this year will benefit from working with experienced coaches over the next few years. It's all about creating the right environment for growth and success. We'll see how it all plays out, but the Raiders seem to be on the right path. So, what do you think the Raiders will do with Maxx Crosby's contract? Should he get an increment and guarantee money? Share your thoughts in the comment section.